Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Moxxie Coaching Podcast. My name is Michele, and I'll be your host as we explore what coaching is and how it can help you create your best life. If you're anything like me, it's important to you to give back in some way. Maybe it's volunteering in the soup kitchen. Maybe it's donating $1 million to environmental research. It doesn't really matter. I started coaching and podcasting because I'm just one person who can only do so much alone. And I realized that through coaching and through podcasting, I could help and support those of you who want to do good works and exponentially increase the amount of good that I'm able to do. So if this sounds like you, please be sure to like and subscribe, and I look forward to seeing you soon. Be well. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Moxxie Coaching Podcast. My name's Michele, and I am your host. And this week, we are going to be talking about perfectionism and talking about giving yourself the gift of imperfectionism. If you're a perfectionist yourself, or if you love someone who's a perfectionist, then you need to listen to this episode. I'm not perfect. Get that. I'm not perfect. Literally, as I was writing out my notes for this podcast, I think it's the first time I ever wrote that statement. I have spent half of a century, let that sink in, 50 years, 50, feeling like I should be perfect and feeling like I was less because I'm not. Now, let's be clear. If somebody had asked me along the way if I believed that humans are supposed to be perfect, I'd have told them, of course not. That's a ridiculous idea. No one's perfect. No one's capable of being perfect. No one should even try to be perfect. And then, without realizing it, I would have turned around and in the next breath, given myself shit for forgetting to send an email or snapping at somebody or just doing something, just a thing that we do. For as long as I can remember, I have been a perfectionist. I never really even realized what it was as a kid. It was just how I was. I was the type of kid who didn't want to do something if I couldn't do it well. I was the type of person who, God forbid, did not want to do something in front of someone that I did not do well. To the point that when my husband and I took up golf, I would literally let so many people go through past us because I didn't want somebody behind us looking at me and judging my way, 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 way less than perfect golf swing. I mean, it was ridiculous, but I would get so nerved up because it wasn't going to be great. It wasn't going to be great. Like they gave a rat's ass, right? And then, of course, it wouldn't be great because I had myself so worked up that, my body was totally out of control at that point, regardless of what I wanted it to do. So the ball would go shank off in one direction or the other. You'd hear somebody on the other fairway yell because the ball hit him in the head, and I would just go, oh. Now, mind you, this is coming from someone who already at that point had decided that the only way golf was going to be fun for me was if I didn't care about the rules, because I knew I wasn't going to spend enough time learning to play golf to really get good at it. So if I wanted to pick up my ball and whip it 50 yards, I couldn't do that. But you know what I'm saying? Whip it down the fairway. I'd pick up my damn ball and whip it down the fairway. So I have been working on this perfectionist thing for a long time, but that's one of those things that would really get me. And I know that I cannot be the only person out there who has this type of um, kind of anxiety about not being perfect in every situation. As a kid, like I said, I always felt this overwhelming need to be perfect, to get all A's, to, um, I needed that praise. And I found later, through some therapy and whatnot, that I have a people pleasing trauma response. And part of that people pleasing trauma response is to let other people off the hook for being less than perfect. So I'm perfectly able, I'm overly able to let someone off the hook for not being perfect if they're not me. Because I want them to like me and I want them to understand and I want them, oh my goodness, and if I'm not perfect, they won't like me, right? So what happened is for years and years and years, I was expecting perfection of myself while simultaneously letting other people get away with ridiculous stuff and certainly not being perfect in and of themselves. So, yay me, right? I finally understand kind of where that's coming from, but I still have to deal with the fact that I've got 50 years of perfectionist behavior essentially programmed into my being. I didn't realize that the pressure I put on myself was 20 times the pressure I was putting on anyone else. One slip up in a work meeting would leave me unable to stop replaying that moment in my head over and over and over. And it might be for 2 or 3 days. And worse yet, I would start to question my own competency, which would make me commit to myself to try even harder, not to make mistakes, which of course led to more mistakes or leads to more mistakes when I find myself kind of getting into that wound up perfectionist mode. It's not fun and it's not healthy. And I'm sharing all of this stuff with you because if you're not 57 like me, how about taking advantage of the wisdom of we old folks? Or I invite you to take advantage of the wisdom of we older folks and start giving yourself a break today, right? So that's why I'm telling you all of this, because I want you, when you're my age, to not have your phone ring when you're podcasting. Be right back. Okay, we're leaving that in because I'm not perfect. All right, back to my point. My whole point, guys, is that if I can save one person who's 20 or 25 or 30, whatever, if I can save one person from feeling like they're constantly having to exist in this space of perfection, then airing my dirty laundry is absolutely well worth it. Okay, so of course, study after study has been done on the effects of perfectionism on one's health and wellness and all of those things. And absolutely, it's no surprise to find out that perfectionist tendencies have been linked to this enormous laundry list of clinical issues: depression, anxiety, self harm, social anxiety, OCD, eating disorders, all the way up to suicidal thoughts, right? So this is not something that we should be glossing over. This is something that if you are feeling this way ongoingly, maybe it's time to get some help. So for myself, I've been working on this stuff for a while, and I'm going to say probably 5 years I've been working on it with very, very slow progress. but it has been steady progress. However, I'm going to tell you a story about something that happened to me just recently that took me right back to feeling like I had to be perfect, and it absolutely sucked. So, I don't know how many of you know that in addition to my tarot work and my coaching, I also work as a consultant or project manager for occasional projects. And I'm working on one now as a grant director, managing grants to schools in Detroit for the purpose of promoting health and wellness. And it's perfect for me. It's mission driven. It's a cause I'm passionate about. It allows me to network, to further my career, all of those things. So it's a win, 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 win. And I'm working with this woman who is so incredibly nice, it's annoying. She's very bright. She is really good at her job. And I think she's probably trying to impress her new boss. And I also very, very strongly suspect that she's a miserable closet perfectionist herself. So I really would like to develop a professional relationship with this woman. She's got great contacts. It would benefit my career. So, of course, I want to impress her with my work, right? So I made an error. And it was a ridiculous little teeny tiny error, but I blew it so far out of proportion. It was ridiculous. So I'm sending an email to someone. I grabbed the wrong content or the wrong contact. There were two people in my email list. Both had the first same two letters of their name. I was in a hurry, grabbed one, sent it off. It was sent to the wrong person. So the perfectionist person would have seen my error because I CC'd her on the email. And although I immediately caught that error and I made the correction and I made sure she knew, my first response to realizing I had made that just silly little human mistake absolutely threw me. I went into, oh shit, I can't believe I did that. What is she going to think? Now she's going to think I'm incompetent. Why would she want to work with me again when I can just do something this boneheaded? Now, mind you, it was not a big deal. It was an email. It went to the wrong person. I sent apologies. They said, oh, I wondered. I was a little confused. Thank you. And that was the end of it. It went to the right person after that. However, for that afternoon, it was really bothering me. So, first lesson, I've gone from things bothering me usually for days to things bothering me for an afternoon, right? So you can see that there is progress there. Now, how am I working on this? What am I doing to get myself to the point where I only freak out for a couple hours? And then hopefully I get to the point where I only freak out for an hour, and then wouldn't it be amazing to not freak out at all? So it's been shown that self-compassion is one of the biggest and strongest protections against anxiety and depression. And self-compassion is exactly what perfectionists lack. We are not compassionate with ourselves. We talked about that earlier, right? Letting other people off the hook for things that we would have just, verbally berated ourselves for. I have learned that when I get into that mode of perfection / people pleasing hamster wheel thing, if I take a moment and consider the person in the situation, so in this case, the woman that I'm working with, and I reframe that person to make them more human, to look at what we might have in common and see the real person. So, for example, with this person, it took me sitting down and really thinking about who she was and my own feelings, right? Of clearly somewhere in there not feeling good enough or, less than, something along those lines, and wondering if she ever felt that way. And my goal was to strip away her job title, the organization she worked for, her perkiness, her perfection, as many of the trappings of profession and culture as I could. And basically try to reduce her to just the essence of a human being and realizing that she's just another person. She is someone I would bump into at the supermarket. She's someone I would see walking her dog down the street or pushing her baby stroller. She's somebody who tucks her little girl in every single night. She's a mom, she's a wife, she's a daughter, she's all of these things. She's not just this one person who is one dimensional. And stripping away all of those things that are external, I was able to really see her as being real and being a vulnerable human being. And human beings make mistakes, therefore, she makes mistakes too. And in that moment, I was able to feel compassion for her, where earlier I had felt annoyance for her tendency to be so picky and precise. And I'm not saying that I won't ever go back to feeling annoyed with her tendency to be so picky and precise, but I'm able now to see her as a regular person. And that puts her on par with me because I'm a regular person. And it puts her on par with everybody else. And it puts everyone on par, blah, 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 blah. We're all just regular people when we get stripped down to the basics. So, is that type of analysis an ass backward way of arriving at self compassion? Maybe, but it works. It's working for me. And when I work to really identify with not the face that somebody is showing the world, but the soul that I know they are, the soul who struggles in many of the same ways that I struggle, and probably even in ways that I don't struggle because we're all unique. It works. It's like, oh yeah, we're all just here. We're all in this together. We're all trying our best. And in some ways, this goes back to last week's episode about managing energy and the gratitude in, love out mantra for meditation. And it's about being curious and learning to be grateful for the fact that we're all here working through life to the absolute best of our ability together. And putting me in her place kind of cracked open some compassion for her where there hadn't been any before. And it allowed me to see who she was just long enough to create the connection that will help me remember in the next Zoom meeting when she's talking, and picking at something, that it's okay. And if I can give her a break, if I can have compassion for her, if I can give that gift of compassion to her, then I can certainly give that gift to myself. Now, my suspicion is that, I don't just say, oh, I'm giving up being a perfectionist, or you're going to say you give up being a perfectionist. We've had way too many years of being alive, embodying this perfectionist role that we're in. It's not easy to change that many years of programming overnight. However, I am committed to the process, and I am committed to going out in public without worrying about what I look like. And I'm committed to wearing the clothes that I want to wear without regard for what anyone else thinks. I am learning to give myself the gift of imperfection. And I hope that you join me. Happy holidays, everybody.